Thank you for moderating a great debate. And Ambassador Bolton, at times, obviously a heated discussion, but I want to thank you for your participation in it as well. And I think the heated nature of our dialogue reflects the fact that we deeply care about what makes the United States stronger for the next generation of Americans, even if we have some deep disagreements on exactly how we get there. Now, I believe in peace through strength. But I believe in peace through actual strength, which is different than the appearance of strength. I believe there's a generational difference on stage tonight. And I don't just mean that in the fact that we're obviously of different ages, but of different perspectives from our experiences. I think if you come from an era in the United States where you remember that era of the Apollo missions, remember the era of putting that man on the moon, the idea that we as Americans can achieve anything we set our mind to, of course, I believe you're likely to see the world through a prism where you believe that we can intervene in multiple different foreign conflicts and prevail at the same time, including achieving goals in Ukraine that involves the restoration of Crimea and all the other regions that are occupied, because we've done it before. That was the America we know, we love, we miss. And for my part, you have a generational bias too. I'm a millennial. I'm the youngest person ever to run for US president as a Republican. I grew up in the era of not only the Afghanistan war, but the failed Iraq war. We're jaded, we're cynical about the possibility that, you know what, we're able to use this warfare state to somehow achieve our goals when it hasn't worked out that way. My message to our generation is this: we can't just be cynical about our country. I want to get back to that country, that shining city on a hill where we know we can achieve even what others will say is impossible. But we can't get there through the appearance of strength, through projecting that strength in multiple regions when we don't actually have it. We need to rebuild our military. We need to close the gap of recruitment in the US military. We have a 25% recruitment gap in the US military right now. Less than 16% of Gen Z says they're even proud to be an American. There's a deep deficit of national pride in this country, and that is in part due to the failures of the last 20 years. After the Berlin Wall fell, after we achieved that ultimate victory, I do think that it was a failed bipartisan consensus of democratic capitalism to China, to engaging in conflicts that didn't directly advance American interests in ways that came back to actually harm American interests, that have left our generation so cynical that you have young people, not like those in this room, but many, especially those who aren't, to say, if that's what's going to happen with my service in the US military, then I don't want to do it, versus actually rebuilding a country that is strong and achieves peace through actual strength rather than the artificial appearance of it. And so my call for the future of our movement, the conservative movement, of which I think Ambassador Bolton and I are both a part, is to revive the principles that made this country great the first time around. End the welfare state in all of its forms, the domestic regulatory state, the domestic entitlement state, but also the foreign policy nanny state as well. We don't want to replace the left-wing nanny state with the right-wing nanny state. The right answer for the future is we want to get in there and dismantle the nanny state in every form, not just the entitlement state and the regulatory state, but this broader foreign policy nanny state as well. To look our allies in the eye and say that our relationship is stronger when we're able to be honest with one another. To say that we're going to provide protection where it advances our own interests, but we are also going to be downright stern in demanding that you pay for your fair share of it. Not because we're just saving dollars for the United States, though that's important enough when we face a $34 trillion national debt, but also because then we're not going to be chain ganged into wars where those countries are not internalizing fully the costs of actually entering those wars. That's not an isolationist position. It's a pro-American position. And I think that duty of our elected leaders flows back not to the rest of the world, but the duty of the US elected leaders is to the citizens right here at home. And so yes, at a moment where we have a more porous southern border than we have at any point in our national history, when the synthetic fentanyl with inputs from China are flowing through that border, killing 80,000 plus Americans every year on American soil, at a time when we have a deficit of national pride that's the greatest we've seen in our modern national history, where recruitment in the military has declined, when you see the US depending on China for our own military and national defense, yes, we require a new way forward that's different from copying the methods of the last 20 years that got us here. And so that's what I'm calling on us to do, to not only have this conversation and use this as a useful starting point, but to say that we don't have to repeat those mistakes if we're willing to learn from them. And if we do, then I don't believe we have to remain this nation in decline. Decline is a choice. We don't have to be ancient Rome. We don't have to be the nation in decline. I believe we still can be a nation in our ascent. Not in some fake politician way, but in a true way. And you know how we achieve peace through strength? If the shining city on a hill no longer shines, what hope does the rest of the world have? The way we're going to do this isn't by intervening elsewhere, but by making sure that our shining city on a hill is as strong as we possibly can be at home. That's how we strengthen democracy abroad, is by remaining the strongest democracy right here in America. Thank you all. God bless you and your families. Thank you for coming today. And thank you to our participants. God bless. Thank you.